I'm Edna, 58 years old, and I never thought my Sunday morning blueberry pancakes would end with betrayal. My daughter Melissa and her husband Jeffrey arrived for our family breakfast tradition with unusual excitement. "Mom, I have a surprise for you," she said, sliding an envelope across the table. My hands trembled as I opened it. $500,000 in debt. Jeffrey smiled thinly. "It needs to be paid by Monday." When confusion turned to refusal, my own daughter threw hot coffee at my chest, and Jeffrey pointed to the door. "Get out of our way." If you've ever been blindsided by family, let me know where you're watching from. Subscribe now as I share how this moment changed everything. My life before that fateful Sunday was quiet, but fulfilling. After 32 years teaching fourth grade at Lincoln Elementary, I had settled comfortably into retirement. My husband Thomas had passed away 5 years earlier from a heart attack, leaving me alone in our modest 3-bedroom ranch in Oakwood Estates. We were never wealthy, but Thomas had been meticulous with our finances. His life insurance policy, our paid-off mortgage, and my teacher's pension meant I could live without financial worry, though certainly not in luxury. Thomas and I had worked hard for everything we had. He managed the local hardware store while I taught, and we saved diligently for decades. Our vacations were road trips in our reliable sedan, not exotic cruises. We clipped coupons and comparison shopped. Our biggest splurge was sending Melissa to a private college when she insisted the state university wasn't good enough. Melissa was always our golden child, bright, beautiful, and talented at everything she attempted. But looking back, the warning signs were there. The tantrums when she didn't get the newest toy her friends had. The expectation that we would bail her out when she maxed out her first credit card sophomore year. The way she quit jobs when supervisors didn't appreciate her potential. Still, we adored her. After Thomas died, she became my world. She called regularly and visited every few weeks, filling my quiet house with her energy. So when she introduced me to Jeffrey 3 years ago, I wanted to be happy for her. He was handsome in that polished way. Perfect teeth, designer clothes, and a luxury car. He worked in financial consulting, though the details always seemed vague. "He makes me feel special, Mom," Melissa had gushed. At 42, after 2 failed relationships, she seemed desperate to make this one work. Their whirlwind romance led to an engagement within 6 months. I voiced gentle concerns about the pace, but Melissa brushed them aside. "When you know," she said, flashing her enormous diamond ring. The wedding was where I first felt real unease. Jeffrey insisted on a destination ceremony at a luxury resort in Maui. When I cautiously mentioned the expense, Melissa said, "Jeffrey says investing in Memories is worth any price." I contributed $20,000, more than I could comfortably afford, but it barely covered the flowers. After the wedding, they moved into a sprawling house in an exclusive neighborhood. Jeffrey drove a new German sports car, and Melissa quit her marketing job to focus on their social connections. Over the next 2 years, the requests started small: $500 for a vet emergency, $1,000 for a business opportunity Jeffrey couldn't miss, $3,000 when property taxes were unexpectedly high. Each time I dipped into my savings, telling myself it was temporary. Each time I visited their home, new luxury items appeared: designer furniture, a home theater system, Melissa's closet overflowing with clothes still sporting price tags. When I gently questioned the expense, Melissa would say, "Jeffrey's business is really taking off," though specifics remained elusive. 2 months before the fateful breakfast, they invited me to dinner at an expensive restaurant. Jeffrey ordered $200 bottles of wine and insisted on making a show of his platinum card. Later that week, Melissa called asking if I could loan them $8,000 to cover some unexpected expenses. "Is everything okay financially?" I asked carefully. "Of course, Mom," Melissa laughed. "Jeffrey just has some cash flow timing issues with his investments. The money will be back in our account next month." I transferred the money that afternoon. They never mentioned it again. The morning began like any other Sunday when Melissa and Jeffrey visited. I woke early, eager to prepare our traditional family breakfast. The kitchen filled with the sweet aroma of blueberry pancakes, my special recipe with fresh berries and a hint of lemon zest. Bacon sizzled in the cast-iron pan that had belonged to Thomas's mother. Fresh coffee brewed in the pot, the rich scent mingling with the maple syrup I'd warmed. They were 45 minutes late, not unusual recently. When the doorbell finally rang at 10:30, I hurried to answer, wiping my hands on my apron. Melissa looked stunning as always in designer jeans and a silk blouse, but I noticed immediately that her smile seemed forced, her eyes darting nervously. Jeffrey stood behind her, impeccable in casual luxury wear, his confidence bordering on arrogance. "Sorry we're late, Mom," Melissa said, kissing my cheek. "Traffic was terrible." Jeffrey didn't bother with excuses, just strode past me to the kitchen. "Something smells great, Edna. I'm starving." As we settled around the kitchen table, Thomas and I had never used the formal dining room much. I served the pancakes, making sure Jeffrey got the largest stack, as he always seemed to expect. Conversation flowed about neighborhood gossip and the unseasonably warm weather. I noticed Melissa barely touched her food, while Jeffrey devoured his and reached for seconds. "How's work going, Jeffrey?" I asked, trying to show interest in his perpetually vague business ventures. "It's all about relationships in my field," he replied between bites. "Building the right connections. I've got some major opportunities in the pipeline." The same answer he always gave without specifics. After refilling coffee cups, I noticed Melissa and Jeffrey exchange glances. Melissa straightened in her chair and reached for her designer handbag. "Mom," she said with this sudden brightness, "I have a surprise for you." She pulled out a cream-colored envelope and slid it across the table. "Jeffrey and I have been doing a lot of thinking about family and the future." "What's this?" I asked, genuinely curious. My birthday had passed months ago. "Just open it," Jeffrey urged, leaning forward with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Inside the envelope wasn't a card, but a stack of papers. Confusion turned to disbelief as I flipped through them. Bank statements showing massive overdrafts, credit card bills with six-figure balances, tax liens, loan documents, page after page of financial disaster, all in Jeffrey and Melissa's names. The total at the bottom of the summary page, $517,000. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Jeffrey leaned back in his chair, suddenly all business. "It's pretty straightforward, Edna. We've had some temporary setbacks in cash flow. These obligations need to be addressed immediately. By Monday," Melissa added, reaching for my hand across the table. "The main creditor has given us until Monday." "Monday. That's tomorrow," I said, still trying to process the numbers before me. "This is over $500,000. $497,000 to be exact," Jeffrey corrected. "We've rounded up for contingencies." "But I don't have this kind of money," I said, my heart pounding. "My house isn't even worth that much." "Don't be silly, Mom," Melissa said with a laugh that sounded rehearsed. "We know about Dad's life insurance and your retirement accounts." I felt sick. "Those are my retirement savings, everything Thomas and I worked for our entire lives." "It's just a loan," Jeffrey said dismissively. "My new venture is about to secure major funding. We'll pay you back with interest within 6 months." "What venture? What happened to all your other successful businesses?" I asked, finding my voice. Melissa jumped in. "Mom, that's not the point. Family supports each other. Remember when you helped me with college, with my first apartment? This is no different." "It's completely different." I set down the papers with shaking hands. "This is an enormous amount of money. I need time to think, to talk to my financial advisor." Jeffrey's face darkened. "There is no time. If we don't resolve this by tomorrow, there will be serious consequences." "What kind of consequences?" I asked. "Legal action, potential criminal charges for some investments that didn't go as planned." Bankruptcy at minimum, he said coldly. Is that what you want for your daughter? You've already told these creditors I would pay, haven't you? I realized with growing horror. The guilty look on Melissa's face confirmed it before she spoke. We knew you'd help us, Mom. You always have. Absolutely not, I said, finding strength in my shock. This is outrageous. I can't and won't hand over my life savings without understanding exactly what happened. Jeffrey's charming facade vanished completely. What happened is none of your business. What matters is fixing it. It became my business when you brought me this. I held up the papers. What is all this debt for? Where did $500,000 go? Melissa shifted uncomfortably. We've had some lifestyle expenses. Lifestyle expenses? I echoed. I began examining the statements more closely. $30,000 to a luxury car dealership, $12,000 to a designer boutique in 1 month, $75,000 to JW Casino Holdings. Jeffrey snatched the papers from my hand. This is exactly why we didn't provide details. You're too provincial to understand how business networking works. Those casino expenses were relationship building with investors. It looks like gambling debts to me, I said flatly. How dare you? Melissa gasped. Jeffrey works so hard. We deserve nice things. Everyone lives on credit these days. Not $500,000 worth, I countered. No one deserves to spend money they don't have, especially not at this magnitude. Jeffrey leaned forward, his voice dropping to a threatening tone. Listen carefully, Edna. This isn't a request. We've already informed the primary creditor that payment will be made from your accounts. They've suspended collection actions based on that assurance. The realization of how thoroughly I'd been set up hit me like a physical blow. You had no right to do that. We had every right. Melissa's voice rose shrilly. You're sitting on all that money while we're struggling. It's selfish. Selfish to not hand over my retirement to cover your designer clothes and gambling. The absurdity was breathtaking. You've never supported my happiness, Melissa accused, tears forming. You were always judging my choices. That's not true, and you know it, I said, struggling to keep my composure. I've supported you your entire life. But this isn't support. It's exploitation. Enough! Jeffrey slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes jump. We don't need a lecture from someone who's never built anything. Your husband left you comfortable and you've done nothing to grow it. I've created opportunities. Opportunities that led to financial ruin, I pointed out. The answer is no. I won't bankrupt myself to enable this irresponsibility. Melissa's face contorted with rage I'd never seen before. You selfish, horrible woman, after everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. That's when it happened. Melissa grabbed her coffee mug and threw the contents directly at me. The hot liquid splashed across my chest and face. I gasped in pain and shock, jumping up from my chair. How dare you speak to us like that? She screamed. We're family. Family helps each other. I stood, frozen coffee dripping from my blouse, unable to reconcile this person with my daughter. Jeffrey rose to his full height, towering over me. You pathetic old woman, he said with cold contempt. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, we'll have no choice but to tell the creditors you've been involved in our investments from the beginning. That's a lie, I whispered. It's your word against ours, he smirked. And we have documentation with your signature on it. My blood ran cold. What documentation? Instead of answering, Jeffrey pointed to the door. Get out! Get out of our way right now! This is my house, I said, disbelief mounting. Get out! Melissa screamed again, reaching for the syrup pitcher this time. Shaking with shock and fear, I grabbed my purse and fled my own home. I could hear them shouting behind me as I rushed to my car. My hands trembled so badly I could barely insert the key in the ignition. Somehow, I managed to drive the 15 minutes to my sister Patty's house, my wet blouse cold against my skin, my mind unable to process what had just happened. "Oh my God, Edna, what happened to you?" Patty exclaimed when she opened her door. My appearance must have been alarming. Coffee-stained clothes, tear-streaked face, and visible trembling. Patty, 5 years my senior and widowed like me, had always been my rock. She ushered me inside, immediately getting a cold compress for the reddened skin on my chest, where the coffee had soaked through my blouse. Melissa threw hot coffee at me. I said the words sounding surreal, even as I spoke them. She did what... Patty's shock mirrored my own. As I recounted the morning's events, Patty's expression shifted from concern to outrage. "We're calling the police right now," she insisted. "They assaulted you and threatened you in your own home." "I can't report my own daughter," I protested weakly. "Watch me," Patty replied, already dialing. She requested officers to escort me back to my house, explaining the situation as family members who became threatening and refused to leave. 2 officers met us at my home an hour later. The house was empty. Jeffrey's luxury car gone from the driveway. Inside, dirty breakfast dishes still sat on the table, maple syrup congealing on abandoned plates. More disturbing were the financial documents left scattered across the kitchen counter. Apparently, in their haste to leave, Jeffrey and Melissa had forgotten some of their evidence. "Ma'am, would you like to file a formal report about the assault?" one officer asked after I explained what had happened. I hesitated, still protecting Melissa out of maternal instinct. "Not at this time. I just want to understand what's happening." After the police left, Patty and I spread the documents across the dining room table, the one Thomas and I had used only for special occasions. What we discovered turned my confusion to horror. Among the papers were loan applications with what appeared to be my signature, clumsy forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless. A half-completed application for a second mortgage on my house. Credit card applications in my name. "This is identity theft," Patty said grimly. "And fraud. Edna, they were planning to steal everything from you." The phone rang, startling us both. It was Amanda, one of Melissa's friends from college, whom I'd always liked. "Edna, thank God you answered," she said, her voice urgent. "I've been trying to reach you. I'm worried about Melissa and what Jeffrey might be involving her in." "What do you know about this Amanda?" I asked. "Jeffrey isn't who he claims to be," she said. "My brother works in banking, and he recognized Jeffrey's name from a warning list. He's been involved in multiple investment scams. He's bankrupted at least 2 previous girlfriends before Melissa." The news hit me like a physical blow. "Why didn't you tell us this before?" "I tried when they first got engaged," Amanda said miserably. "Melissa accused me of being jealous and cut me off. We only reconnected recently, and I've been seeing signs that she's in trouble. The spending, the lying about their finances. Jeffrey controls everything. Her phone, her email, who she talks to. She called me yesterday sobbing about needing a huge amount of money immediately, then hung up when Jeffrey came in the room." After thanking Amanda, I called my financial advisor, Robert, who agreed to meet us on a Sunday, given the urgency. His office was closed, so we met at a quiet coffee shop. I brought all the documents we'd found. Robert's face grew increasingly grave as he reviewed them. "This is extremely serious, Edna. These aren't just debts. There are indications of securities fraud, tax evasion, and identity theft. And they've clearly been planning to access your accounts fraudulently." "Could I lose everything?" I asked, my voice small. "Not if we act immediately, Baon," he assured me. "First thing tomorrow, we're freezing all your accounts and credit. I'm calling my friend at the bank right after this to flag your accounts for fraud protection." That night at Patty's house, where she insisted I stay, I lay awake wrestling with impossible choices. My daughter was both victim and perpetrator. Jeffrey was clearly controlling and manipulative, perhaps even abusive. But Melissa had participated in attempting to defraud me, her own mother. The coffee incident replayed in my mind. The rage in her eyes hadn't been Jeffrey's. It had been hers. I loved my daughter desperately, but for the first time I realized loving her might not mean saving her from these consequences. Monday morning brought the crisis to a head. I'd barely slept, and Patty and I were having coffee when the first call came at 8:30. An aggressive man identifying himself as representing Criterion Investments demanded to speak with me about the promised wire transfer. I haven't promised any transfer, I said firmly, following Robert's advice. Your son-in-law assured us you'd be handling the payment today, the man insisted. We've suspended our collection actions based on that understanding. That understanding was made without my knowledge or consent, I replied. His tone immediately hardened. Ma'am, this is a very serious situation. Your daughter and her husband have signed documents indicating your involvement in these investments. If payment is not received by close of business today, we'll have no choice but to pursue all legal avenues, including potential criminal charges. Similar calls followed throughout the morning. By 10, there was a knock at Patty's door. 2 men in suits stood on the porch asking for me by name. Patty refused to confirm if I was there and threatened to call the police if they didn't leave immediately. They reluctantly departed, leaving business cards for collection agencies with handwritten cell numbers. On Robert's recommendation, I consulted attorney Diane Lowenstein, who specialized in elder financial abuse. She cleared her morning schedule to see me immediately. Unfortunately, this situation isn't as uncommon as you might think, Diane said after reviewing the documents and hearing my story. Family financial exploitation is growing rapidly, especially targeting parents and grandparents with good credit and assets. What should I do? I asked. First, we file for emergency protective orders, both financial and personal, she said, already drafting documents. Then we contact the fraud departments at every financial institution involved. I'll also reach out to the district attorney's office about the forgery and identity theft aspects. As Diane worked, my cell phone rang. Melissa's name flashed on the screen. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Mom? Her voice was small, tearful. Nothing like her rage the day before. Melissa, where are you? I asked. Can I come see you alone? Please, she begged. Against both Patty's and Diane's advice, I agreed to meet Melissa at a public restaurant near Diane's office. Diane insisted on staying within sight at another table. Melissa arrived looking nothing like her usual polished self. Her hair was unwashed, her designer clothes wrinkled. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. The creditors came to the house this morning, she said without preamble. They're threatening to take everything. Jeffrey says they might press charges. For what? I asked. Some of the investment paperwork wasn't completely legitimate, she admitted, eyes downcast. Jeffrey said it was just to speed things up, that everything would be fixed when the deals paid off. Melissa, these weren't investments. This was fraud, I said gently. Her eyes flashed with momentary anger before crumpling into tears. You don't understand. Jeffrey had some bad luck, but he's brilliant. He just needs capital to make everything work. Where is he now? I asked. Meeting with potential investors, she said vaguely. Mom, please. If you don't help us, we'll lose everything. Our house, our cars, I'll have nothing. Looking at my daughter, middle-aged but so vulnerable, my heart ached. Honey, I'll help you, but not the way you're asking. I can offer you a safe place to stay, support to leave Jeffrey, counseling, but I can't give money for these debts. Her expression hardened. So you'll let them take me to jail? Your own daughter? No one's going to jail if you cooperate with authorities and tell the truth, I said. Jeffrey has done this before to other women. Amanda's brother recognized his name from banking fraud lists. Amanda had no right to tell you anything, Melissa snapped, the vulnerability vanishing. Jeffrey explained all that. Those women tried to ruin him because he refused to keep supporting their extravagant demands. Melissa, please listen to yourself, I pleaded. This man has isolated you from friends, involved you in fraud, and now has creditors threatening you. This isn't love. You've never supported my happiness, she said, reverting to the script from yesterday. Jeffrey is the only one who truly believes in me. Believes in you enough to let you face financial ruin and possible criminal charges, I countered. She gathered her purse, standing abruptly. I knew this was a mistake. Jeffrey was right about you. You've always been jealous of my lifestyle, of what we have. What you have are massive debts and legal problems, I said, standing too. Please, honey, let me help you the right way. I don't need your kind of help, she said coldly, turning to leave. I watched her walk away, my heart breaking all over again. At 2 a.m, my phone rang. It was the county sheriff's department. Melissa and Jeffrey had been arrested attempting to access my accounts at an all-night bank branch using forged authorization documents. The officer explained they needed my statement immediately to determine charges. With Patty by my side, I drove to the sheriff's department in my pajamas and robe, still trying to process that my daughter was in a jail cell. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my life. Harder than losing Thomas, because grief for a loving husband is clean compared to the messy heartbreak of betrayal by your child. Jeffrey faced multiple felony charges: fraud, forgery, identity theft, and attempted grand larceny. His criminal history emerged during the investigation: previous bankruptcies under different company names, civil judgments from former business partners, and restraining orders from 2 ex-girlfriends. Melissa was charged as an accomplice, though her attorney negotiated for lesser charges, given evidence of Jeffrey's manipulation and control. Still, her participation had been knowing and active. The coffee assault added a battery charge. I hired the best attorney I could find for Melissa, separate from Jeffrey's case. It was the only financial help I offered. The hardest decision was not posting her bail immediately following the advice of both her attorney and a family counselor specializing in addiction and codependency. Melissa needs to experience natural consequences, the counselor explained gently. Immediate rescue will only reinforce the pattern. After 3 days, I did post bail with strict conditions. Melissa would live with Patty, not me, as boundaries were essential, attend financial counseling and therapy, and cooperate fully with authorities regarding Jeffrey's activities. The investigation revealed the full extent of their situation. Jeffrey had accumulated gambling debts at multiple casinos. He'd started numerous investment companies that were little more than paper entities for shuffling money. Their lavish lifestyle had been funded entirely on credit and loans with minimal legitimate income. More shocking were the other victims. 3 other women had lost substantial amounts to Jeffrey's schemes. One, a widow in her 60s, had lost her entire retirement savings, over $300,000, and now worked 2 jobs to survive. My jail visit with Melissa a week after her arrest was both healing and heartbreaking. With Jeffrey's influence temporarily removed and reality setting in, her defenses began to crack. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she sobbed across the visitation table. "I don't know how it got so bad. At first it was just small things. Jeffrey saying we should use your address for some business mail, then signing your name on a reference letter, then loan applications. Why didn't you come to me when things started going wrong?" I asked. "I was embarrassed," she admitted, "and scared. Jeffrey has a terrible temper when things don't go his way. He convinced me you'd never understand our lifestyle, that you were holding back what should rightfully be our inheritance." The manipulation was the textbook, but hearing it from my daughter's lips made it no less painful. Jeffrey eventually accepted a plea deal: 8 years in state prison restitution requirements and financial penalties. Melissa received 5 years probation, community service, and mandatory financial counseling. She avoided jail time primarily because of her cooperation in building the case against Jeffrey and his previous fraudulent activities. At Jeffrey's sentencing hearing, I was asked to provide a victim impact statement. Standing in that courtroom looking at my son-in-law in his orange jumpsuit, I spoke from my heart. The financial impact of this crime is significant, but it pales compared to the destruction of trust and family bonds, I told the court. This man didn't just attempt to steal my money, he stole my daughter's sense of reality. He convinced her that exploiting her mother's love was acceptable. That damage can't be calculated in dollars. Rebuilding my financial security took meticulous effort. With Robert and Diane's help, I contested the fraudulent accounts opened in my name. I enrolled in comprehensive credit monitoring and identity protection services. We pursued legal action against creditors who had accepted, obviously, forged documents with mixed success. Jeffrey and Melissa's assets were liquidated to partially satisfy creditors. The house sold at a loss due to multiple liens. The luxury cars repossessed designer items auctioned for pennies on the dollar. In the end, these efforts barely made a dent in their massive debt. The emotional recovery proved far more challenging than the financial. I joined a support group for victims of family financial abuse, surprised to find how common my experience was. Parents who had remortgaged homes to cover adult children's debts. Grandparents who had emptied retirement accounts for emergency loans never repaid. Elderly siblings exploited by younger family members. Therapy helped me process the complex grief of betrayal by my own child. I learned to acknowledge the red flags I'd ignored out of love and hope. I learned that enabling is not the same as supporting. Most importantly, I learned that loving Melissa meant allowing her to face the consequences of her choices, not sheltering her from them. 2 years have passed since that terrible Sunday morning when my world turned upside down. Life has found a new rhythm, different but peaceful in its own way. I sold my house. Too many painful memories lingered there, and bought a smaller condo in a secure building closer to Patty. My financial situation stabilized, though my retirement savings will be more modest than Thomas and I had planned. I've learned to embrace simplicity and find joy in small pleasures rather than material things. Melissa's journey has been harder, but ultimately hopeful. After Jeffrey's sentencing, she initially floundered, alternating between blaming him for everything and maintaining that he was misunderstood. The structured requirements of her probation provided the framework she desperately needed: regular check-ins, financial transparency counseling sessions. 6 months into therapy, something shifted. Her counselor specialized in codependency and financial trauma, helping Melissa recognize patterns that began long before Jeffrey. She started acknowledging her own role in what happened, not just as Jeffrey's victim, but as an active participant who made choices. "I wanted the lifestyle more than I wanted honesty," she admitted during a difficult conversation over coffee. "I chose things over integrity. I convinced myself that rules didn't apply to us because we were special somehow." Melissa found a job as an administrative assistant at a local nonprofit, far from her previous corporate marketing career, but stable and structured. She moved into a tiny studio apartment, learning to live within her means for perhaps the first time in her adult life. Her probation officer reported consistent compliance and progress. Our relationship rebuilt slowly with careful boundaries. Weekly coffee dates became our tradition. Public places, neutral ground, limited time. No money was ever exchanged. No favors requested. We discussed her progress, my volunteer workbooks we'd read. Normal mother-daughter topics that slowly healed the breach between us. After the criminal cases concluded, I found unexpected purpose in volunteer work with the County Elder Services Department, helping seniors recognize and avoid financial exploitation. My story, shared anonymously at first, then more openly as I gained confidence, resonated with many families. I developed educational materials based on my experience identifying red flags I'd missed and boundaries I should have established sooner. Financial boundaries aren't selfish, I tell the seniors in my workshops. They're necessary even with, especially with, the people you love most. The wisdom I've gained through this painful journey hasn't been easy, but it's been valuable beyond measure. I've learned that love doesn't mean enabling destructive behavior, that financial boundaries are necessary even with family, that red flags should never be ignored no matter how much you want to believe the best about someone, that trust must be earned even from loved ones, that true love sometimes means saying no. Perhaps most importantly, I've learned that recovery is possible even after the deepest betrayals. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or removing consequences. It means releasing the hold that anger and pain have on your own heart, allowing yourself to move forward. Today, my relationship with Melissa is different than I ever imagined it would be. More honest, more balanced, built on respect rather than dependence. She calls me her reality check now, the voice that helps her question impulsive decisions. Last month, she celebrated 1 year at her job and invited me to dinner to commemorate the occasion. She paid from her modest salary, proudly showing me her budgeting app and savings account balance. Small steps, rebuilt trust, a new kind of love. If my story resonates with you, please know you're not alone in facing family financial exploitation. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? Share your experience in the comments below. And if you found value in this story, please subscribe to hear more journeys of recovery and resilience. Like and share this video with someone who might need to hear that standing firm is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to peace.